Welcome to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't, a podcast dedicated to helping you create the relationship you truly want.
Why your relationship isn't working. The hidden trap of expectations, neediness, and fantasy. Most people don't enter relationships intending to sabotage them. They come in hopeful, open, and often deeply ready for connection. But beneath that readiness is a quiet architecture. Unspoken expectations, emotional needs that we may not even fully understand ourselves, and a version of love shaped more by imagination than reality. Over time, that architecture can start to strain the relationship itself. Expectations are often the first visible pressure point. We carry ideas about how a partner should show up, how they communicate, how they prioritize us, how they respond emotionally. Some of these expectations are reasonable. Many are inherited from family dynamics, culture, or past relationships. When they go unexamined, they stop being preferences and start becoming silent demands. Self-awareness is so crucial to be recognizing that, because that helps us understand our expectations are exaggerated. Episode 160 is my favorite solo episode in 11 years of podcasting because it's all about the power of self-awareness. Understanding yourself does change everything. So today, I want you to open yourself up to serious consideration of how your expectations might be unfair to your partner and how your own neediness can contaminate clarity about what is really happening when you're having a conflict. We all make life more bearable with our illusions, but in relationships, our fantasies of how things should be can get us into trouble. Neediness is frequently misunderstood. At its core, neediness isn't about having needs. That's human. It's true for all of us. It's about outsourcing your emotional stability to another person. When your sense of security, worth, or calm depends heavily on how your partner behaves, the relationship starts to carry a weight it was never designed to hold. Then there's fantasy, the version of your partner, of your relationship that exists more in your mind than in reality. Fantasy can look like idealizing someone's potential, minimizing incompatibilities, or believing love alone should override fundamental differences. It can feel intoxicating at first, but over time, it creates a growing gap between what is and what you believe should be. When expectations, neediness, and fantasy intersect, they form a powerful loop. Expectations aren't met, which triggers anxiety or insecurity. That anxiety amplifies neediness, which can push a partner away or create tension. And instead of adjusting to reality, the mind often doubles down on the fantasy, holding tighter to how things could be or should be rather than engaging with how they really are. This dynamic doesn't just create conflict, it erodes connection. Partners can start to feel not seen, managed, manipulated, or pressured to perform rather than feeling accepted. Communication becomes reactive instead of curious, and slowly the relationship shifts from a space of mutual growth into a cycle of disappointment and misalignment. And you know how bumpy your car is when your tires aren't aligned. Today's guest, all the way from Australia via Costa Rica, is Simone Milasas. She is a best-selling author, international speaker, and relationship innovator known for her refreshingly honest and unconventional approach to love, intimacy, and life. For over 2 decades, she has facilitated classes around the world, empowering people to move beyond expectations, judgment, and dependency, to create relationships based on choice, freedom, and true connection. She is the author of Relationship, Are You Sure You Want One?, Joy of Business, and Getting Out of Debt Joyfully. And the creator of the intimate play for lovers card deck. Thanks for coming here today. I really appreciate it, Simone.
Oh, you're so welcome, Rhoda. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to begin with the myth of the one, how it keeps people stuck, because I agree that this gets in the way for so many people, even after they've chosen someone. And then in years 6 to 10, which is often my experience when relationships fall apart, they believe they've made some drastic mistake, they didn't find the one, and they want to leave instead of doing the work. So I really wanted to start there.
Oh, I like what you said at the end there, instead of doing the work. You know what? That is the one thing I see people in relationships, they don't want to acknowledge that if you're going to choose a relationship, it's some work you've got to put in, you know? It's yeah. So for me, I mean, gosh, look at all of our movies, you know, all of the books, the movies, everything, and talking about, you know, having the one and finding the one, etc. For me, I think a lot of things with relationships and sex is set up for judgment. It's set up for limitations. It's set up so that we can try and find the right choice whilst judging that we're wrong. And I would like to change that whole culture. I mean, that's why the book that I wrote is called Relationship, Are You Sure You Want One?, which we thought was funny. I actually wrote it with my ex, and when we launched it, we broke up the relationship. But I would like people to have a look at, is this actually what you want to choose? Or are you trying to choose something because you've decided you have to, which is the one? You know, people, I mean, and I know some people in some relationships that have been together for years, and it's fabulous. I know more people who are either single, not in a relationship, or they're in a relationship where you're like, is this actually working for you? And for me, I would like to empower everybody to know that they have a choice, and they should be looking at what actually works for them, because we are so different. We are different people. We need to look at the different scenario that works for us. For me personally, it never made much sense to me that you could find one person and then in 50 years time, you know, I'd look at them and go, in 50 years time, you know, we'll be doing this. And I was like, well, I don't know what I want to be doing in 50 years time. I think it takes away from enjoying others. And for me, if you're going to choose to have someone in your life, whether it's a friend, a lover, like whatever aspect, are you enjoying them? Are you creating at least 20 times more together than what you would alone? You know, do you get that? You know, when you go to meet someone, or you drive to your house and their car's in your driveway already, and you're like, yes, you know, and you get that level of enthusiasm that you're like, yeah, I get so excited to see this person. For me, that's what all relationships should be, and it's actually a possibility. But if you spend your entire life looking for something that perhaps doesn't exist, then what if you are the one for you? And I know that sounds like a cliche, but I honestly think that we need to create a different creationship, I like to call them, with ourselves before we can even expect to have something with somebody else.
I think that's what the zeitgeist right now is really tapping into, because a lot of women in particular are saying, I watch on Instagram, and they say, I don't know, you know, yeah, I'm not going to be a crying cat lady, but I'm really enjoying my life as I am, and I don't need to have somebody else necessarily. And I've always thought that's a much healthier perspective, having a relationship with yourself first.
Yeah, and one of the tools that I talk about a lot is, it's from Access Consciousness, is the 5 elements of intimacy. And if you look at this, the 5 elements of intimacy of gratitude, trust, allowance, vulnerability, and honor. Most of those elements, people try to look for that in somebody else. They want somebody else to honor them. They want somebody else to trust them. They want somebody else to be grateful for them, etc. But what if you started to look at this? I actually, what I used to do is I used to write it on Post-it notes, and I'd put it on my mirror in my bathroom, because every time I'm brushing my teeth, I would look up there and I would look at this with gratitude, trust, honor, allowance, and vulnerability. And I would ask myself, have I been this with me today? Have I been this with my body today? Because we also want somebody else to acknowledge our body while we're waking up judging it. And it's like, you might want to start with your own body and start with you, and start looking at that. And I love when you said too about the not needing. Because for me, like, one of the things I love being treated like a lady. I love being treated like a woman. I love somebody opening a door for me, putting my jacket on, pouring me a glass of wine, pulling my chair out, lifting a bag. Absolutely. And I'm totally capable of doing it myself. And I think there's something that is so lost, Rhoda, on people started to be this, create like an autonomous world for themselves where they were like, I don't need this. It's true. That is true. You do not need it. But what if you could receive it? And what if you could choose it? And what if you could enjoy it? And I think that comes when you actually have those 5 elements of intimacy with yourself. Because if you have that with yourself, my point of view, my perspective is then and only then can you actually choose to have that with somebody else.
I think that's true, and part of it is knowing what you want. I read a difficult email from somebody the other day, and I thought, I really don't know what this person wants, and I think when you think about that a lot. When you know what you want, then you start wondering, does the other person really understand what they want? And being able to talk about your wants without being bossy or filling up all the space, but just being authentic and honest about what's working and what's not.
Hey, 2 things. 1, someone taught me this years ago. If you are confused about what someone's asking for in an email, read from the bottom up. And do you know how helpful that is? Because people will go blah, 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 and get to the bottom, and that's where they actually say what it is. So have a look at the email and try it. It's really interesting because they'll right at the end, they'll be like, oh yeah, and this, but that was actually the most important thing. The second thing is, the word want is a really interesting word, because if you look up a dictionary before 1937, there is over 20 definitions of the word want that mean to lack. So if you're saying, I want a partner, I want love, I want more money, I want, happiness, I want this, what you're actually saying, and I do think a lot of the times, like what we say and what we think creates our reality. So you're saying, I lack of this, I lack of that, I lack of this, I lack of that. So I'm also a big one for recommending, look at your verbiage. Like, are you living in a world of doubt, or are you going, yeah, I can have this? There was Alice in Wonderland, one of my favorite, themes from this, when one of the characters says, why, I've done, 6 impossible things before breakfast.
Yes,
and
yes.
It's like, what if we started living by, I've done 6 impossible things before breakfast today? What if that was more of our reality, and that's more what we were choosing, rather than what we've decided is not possible? It's like, it's now more than ever, I really do think it's time that we need to stand up and just go, no, I'm not buying into all this crap in the world. I know I can choose something different. I can be something different. I get to wake up happy. I get to, choose a different possibility. I mean, if you look at relationships now too, there is so much on the table. Like history of relationships, you pretty much had to get married. That's how you created it for nobility, for wealth, for the obtaining of land, to make sure that there was someone to look after you when you're old, all of these different, reasons and justifications. And now it's like, we've got so much choice available, and we're fighting this to find the right choice rather than actually just being with ourselves for a second and like that relaxation and going, okay, what actually works for me? What do I like? You know, what would I like? And also what you choose today doesn't mean that's what you have to choose in a year or 5 years or 20 years. You're allowed to change your mind, you know?
Yeah, I think the only thing that's permanent is change. You know, it's the only thing that keeps happening over and over and over again. One of my favorite topics: how do expectations and projections quietly destroy connection? I had a husband whose wife refused to go to therapy because so many therapists and couples had told her her expectations were too high, and she didn't want to go anymore. And I think there may be another way to talk about it that you might have some insight, but I think expectations sets up so many problems.
Yeah, I mean, you know, even Buddha in the Buddhist religion, he says expectations will always lead to disappointment. So if you look at, okay, so we spoke about the 5 elements of intimacy. One of those elements is allowance, okay? So let's bring that into this. Because for me, if you look at the projections and expectations, and if you're always, you know, looking at someone and projecting at them what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing or expecting them, and a lot of the times it might be verbal, but a lot of the times it's energetic. You know, it's with a look.
That's right.
And the other person's like, what the hell? Like, what just happened, you know? But they pick up on it, right? And so, and what I see occur is people, instead of being this like explosion of possibilities and happy and joy, which we should be, it gets chipped away at, gets chipped away at, chipped away at, chipped away at. So you become a lesser being because you care about this other person and they're projecting and expecting something of you. Sometimes you don't know what it is you're meant to be fulfilling. Sometimes you do, but you don't actually desire to choose that. So then projections and expectations create judgment. And then they create judgment of both parties, like singularly and together. And then creates separation, because judgment always...
And giving up by the other person, I think. There's a real pattern there of judgment. It doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to give up.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing to bring up too, Rhoda. If I look at my parents, my mother, not a very nice woman, right? She was not a very nice woman. She wasn't very kind at all. She's still alive. She's got severe dementia. She actually forgets to be mean to me, which is interesting.
That is.
But my father was incredibly kind, and he died about 12 years ago. And his generosity of spirit was off the charts, his kindness, everything. But I watched her yell at him my whole life. And I used to say, why are you still with her? You know, but he was a devout Catholic. So for him, he was like, I chose this. And he used to say to me, Simone, you need to go and live your life. He was like, I chose this, I will handle this. But I watched how it wasn't that he quit, he just knew he couldn't win. So he would just sit back and he would just listen and he would take it. He actually became deaf in one ear, which my brother and I used to laugh about, going, oh yeah, I know why you created that. You couldn't hear my mother yelling at him all the time. But for him, his religion was more important to him, right? So he put up with that. I don't think he should have, but that was his choice. So this is where allowance comes in as well. I was in total allowance of my father choosing that, because that's his life, it's his reality. And when you have projections and expectations of somebody else too, and like I said, it creates a separations, and then it creates this rejection of what's actually possible. But if you're an allowance of them, then that's where the fun starts for me. Because like you said, right at the beginning, relationship, you know, is you got to put some work in. So a topic I bring up, which I think a lot of people sort of shy away from, is manipulation.
Oh, I have a whole page on my website about manipulation. But I think that's something I haven't talked about in a long time. Please do talk about that.
Well, I think it's important to know that you can manipulate, and it's like, I mean, you can manipulate as a female. It can be a twinkle in your eye and the tilt of your head. You know, I mean, if you look at the history years ago, women used to drop a handkerchief in the street,
That's right.
So the man would come along as a gentleman and he would pick it up. Now there's two things happening, well, many things happening there, but the two obvious ones is one, she initiated the move. Two, she was totally manipulating. And if you don't think that, if you have a judgment about manipulation, you will usually end up being the one that gets manipulated. Whereas there are some really obvious things that you can choose that create, you know, a different possibility showing up. Like even with the projections and expectations. So there was one, my ex, like my last long-term relationship that I lived with, he was a tradesman. So he was very, very good at handiwork and all of that. But of course, you know, I'd be like, hey, can you fix this? Can you do this? Blah, 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 you know. And he'd be like, yeah, you know, and he wouldn't. So then one day what I did was I rang a handyman and I hired a handyman and he was like, what are you doing? And I went, well, I'm hiring a handyman because we need this, this, and this, and this. And he went, but I can do this. I can do that. And I went, yeah, but, you know, and I didn't make him wrong. I was like, well, what if we hired this handyman? And I was like, and then you get, because he loved surfing as well. You know, he loved cooking and surfing. And he was like, well, what if you go surfing? What if you go cooking, but we hire this handyman? Now I didn't have an expectation of how that showed up. He could have said, cancel the handyman, I'm going to fix this. Or what he did do was, he actually received the handyman coming along because he didn't really want to do all that stuff anymore. So he did that, and then he was a fabulous cook. Like he, you know, almost made MasterChef cook. So he's in the kitchen for hours. I'm very happy. I'm working away here and he's making this amazing meal. So when you come out of that projection and expectation and you be in question and ask, okay, what else is possible beyond this? You start to let other possibilities show up.
It's clean because there's other choices. It's not, I'm going to back you in a corner and then you're going to get penalized for not doing the right thing.
Yeah. That is on mark, Rhoda. The amount of people who have like this, you know, invisible score chart or something in a relationship. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you in this relationship? You know, are you enjoying this person? Or, I mean, I always say, if you want to train something, get a puppy, not a man, you know, or vice versa. It's like, don't go into it expecting to change this person. Go into the relationship being grateful for who they be. And if they change, as you mentioned, we change all the time. As they change, receive it.
Yeah.
What if you're an allowance of everything that they change? Let them be them and you be you. That's the goal, the target that I would love to create with, you know, I mean, the classes I do is relationships and different, one of the classes. And it's so much about empowering people to get, you have a different choice. Please choose what works for you, you know?
And there's something about understanding that one of the things I say often is respect is more important than love, because respect leaves room for the differences. And love, there's always this kind of hidden piece underneath that says, why aren't you more like me? You really are supposed to do things my way. You know, if you really loved me, you would blah, blah, blah. And I just think there's something so important about respecting differences and giving room for it's like space to breathe and be two individuals, not glommed together and acting as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and the word love for me as well, someone came up with this acronym which I thought was brilliant. LOVE, lower oscillating vibrational equivalence.
Oh.
Because when you love someone, right, and you go, oh, I love them, we don't tend to go, I'm going to reach for the stars, come, reach for the stars with me. We tend to go, oh, they're not choosing that, I won't choose that. Oh, they're not choosing this, I won't choose this. And like I said before, you get smaller and smaller and you create yourself to be less. Whereas what would it take to invite people into your life where you woke up and you went, wow, I can be so much more today, because of what I'm choosing, and they're an allowance of me and everything that they're being, bigger.
I just came across something with some research about why women in the States voted against their own interest when they voted for Trump, and because so many things he's against for women. And what it said was women do that because they want to belong. And that's exactly what you just described, is that they want to belong, and so they cater more often, I think, than men do, to you like this, I'm going to like that. You like this,
Yeah.
I'll do this. And, I just think it's such an important thing to try to have a presence in the relationship and still be able to belong.
Yeah, me too. And it starts with you and them. Like my ex, like I said, he loved surfing. And I remember when we first got together and we first moved in together, he went surfing and he goes surfing for hours. And he came back and he had this look on his face that was, and I went, what's up? And he went, are you mad at me? And I went, no, why would I be mad at you? But his ex previously, every time he went surfing, he'd come home and she would yell at him because he was surfing and that wasn't including her. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I went, I love when you go surfing, you come back and I can feel your body is so happy. By the way, I love having 3 hours to myself as well and having that space. But it was so good that we actually had the conversation, because I love doing stuff with him, but I love being on my own. Like, we talk about man cave. Man cave's a real thing, but a lot of women desire that man cave. The idea is space. And people tend to take it personally and go, what did I do wrong? Oh no, he's gone here or she's gone there. I've done something wrong. It's not personal. Ask. And what I always used to ask my ex too, when he would do that man cave mode, I'd go, hey, are you good? Can I contribute anything? Can I help? And he'd go, no, I'm good. And I'd go, okay, cool. And then I would just leave it.
Yeah.
However long it took.
How can members of my audience tap into more awareness of their own neediness, recognizing that their sense of okayness is based on their partner and belonging, to kind of segue from where we are?
Yeah, well, there's a tool that we talk about in Access Consciousness called Who Does This Belong To? And it's brilliant. Because if you have that sense of need, I would stop for a second and just ask, is it yours? Like, ask the question, who does this belong to? Because most people think that they need to have something. But in truth, we can be needless. Like, really, I need to have this, I need to have money, I need to have a house, I need to have a partner, I need to have this. It's not true. But we feed ourselves these lies in order to, become a part of this reality, which for me doesn't really make much sense. There's too much trauma and drama and fear invoked and all this sort of stuff on this amazing, beautiful planet that we have. We get to choose something different. So if you look at everything you think you need, ask, do I? Who does this belong to? Because when you ask who does this belong to, 99% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are not yours. And it's so easy to look at this as an example. If you walk into a room, maybe you walk into a room and there's 10 people and they're angry, right? Or they're upset. What do? It's like you start to sort of look at the energy of that and you start to have that as your reality. Or my favorite is if you walk into a room and there's people laughing and you have no idea what they're laughing about, but then you start laughing.
People do that, yes.
Right? Yeah. But it's the same thing, like thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And like I said, if you look at the world's a little crazy right now, and what is being projected at everybody is the fear, the threat of this, all this sort of stuff. Stop. Okay, if you were choosing your reality, if you were choosing how you live, what would you choose? Do you actually need all of this, or is it more of a choice?
Yeah, that's right. I agree. All of this leads us to a quote that made me choose you as a guest. Most people are struggling to find love. They're struggling to be honest with themselves about what they truly want. Would you tell my audience about this? I thought it was such a lovely thought.
Okay, so in 2020, I travel all over the world. In 2020, I was on the last plane out of Budapest. I was in Hungary and was all of a sudden ended up in Australia. And I was traveling like a lot. And I ended up in Australia and I was sitting on my couch and I went, okay, now what? Now what do I do, And we all thought this is going to go on for a month, 2, 3 months max, And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, my whole life has changed. Now what am I going to choose? So what I started to look at personally was, am I actually choosing what works for me, or am I choosing because other people have told me I'm good at it, or, I should, or all this? So what I did, I wrote down these topics, and you could write down any topic you like, but I wrote down business, money, relationships, sex, body, and geographical. And I spent the next week, just because I live across the road from this beautiful beach, and I spent the next week, as I'd walk on the beach, I would ask myself, am I actually, because I'm 56, am I choosing what I would like? Am I choosing what I would like? And I looked at it with everything, the business, finances, which I've changed a lot of that. I was in debt. Short story, made money, had good investments, everything. And then I went, this actually isn't matching the energy of what I'd like either. So then I started investing in things for me that I perceived would create a different world, right? So these things, and then relationships and sex. And because I had, broken up this long-term relationship, everyone goes, oh, have you found someone new? Have you found this? And projects at you again that, oh, you should be looking for another relationship. Yeah, and I went, do I even want one? So this was brilliant. I sat down and I went, what do I like about relationship? And I wrote down all these things and I went, oh, there is aspects I love. Like, one of my favorite things is, cook a good meal, open a bottle of wine, listen to some good music, have some great conversations, right? That's an aspect of relationship I really like. And I went, oh, but I've actually got that with a lot of people. I'm not copulating with them, right? I'm not having sex with them, but I have that with them. Okay, I like this, And then I looked at sex and I was like, okay, I like sex, I enjoy sex. Do I have to be in a relationship and living with someone in order to have sex? No. Okay, so how could that show up, And then I started to look at what I'd like to create with my body. And then for me, geographical, because I was like, do I really want to just stay in Australia, or would I like the whole world to be my home, But I started to really be in question with everything. And then if we put our attention on the relationship and sex part, I looked at, would I actually like to live with someone again? And I got more of a no, but I was like, if I did, I would like it to be more like Downton Abbey style. They have their bedroom, I have mine. We could have interconnecting doors. We could sleep together every night, or maybe once a week, anything. But I'd like my own bathroom. It's like, I have no desire to share my bathroom with anyone again, Jump in the shower and have a good time together or something, but I don't need to share my bathroom. There was all these different things that I went, oh, it would work if this. And I think we stop asking for what it is we would truly like to choose and what would work for us. Like, as you indicated before, Rhoda, there are so many really independent people out there who don't actually need to have someone, but you get to choose it. And if you're going to choose it, like, make it good.
And do the work. Don't just bail, I tell people often they'll repeat the same mistakes with the next person if they don't try to understand their part. So when I have somebody dating, I say, I want you to ask what they learned from their last relationship. How did they improve? What did they learn about themselves? And that is not a question a lot of people can answer. But I think it's really shows more of a depth in that period during 6 to 10, which it just seems to happen a lot. Even famous people do. But thinking about, what is it I need to do different to make this relationship work, and not just pointing your finger at the other person. I always think blame is pretty Immature is not the word I want to use, but it's not grounded in authenticity or reality.
Yeah, I think blame, shame, like all of that is more of a distractor from looking at what really is.
Yes. Yep.
So I have a tool, and this is putting in the work, okay? And I'm going to say it, I might have to say it twice, because everyone always goes, what? It's like, this is a really great tool to use if you're in a relationship, and as Rhoda and I both said, you need to put the work in, okay? How many times when your partner is talking about something and you're thinking, I really don't care about this. Like, it could be them talking about football or playing golf or, something like that, or you're talking about cooking and they have they don't care. Okay, here's the tool. Care about what you don't care about and don't care about what you care about. And what it does is it flips it, because it's like, I notice, so I've had a lover now for 6 years. I call him my lover because I'm really not interested in having, like right now, it doesn't interest me in having that relationship where we're like, oh, we're a partner. What are we doing this weekend? It's like, so he's my lover, which I like. But there's certain topics he'll talk about it, and I'm like, because he likes video games and the creating of it and all this sort of thing. And it's like, that's not my gig. But I'll sit there and I'll listen to him and I'll care about it because I see he cares about it, right? So you care about something that you don't care about, because how many times do you just dismiss it, right? You dismiss it. And then the second piece to it, don't care about what you care about, because you always try and make the other person care about what you care about, but maybe they don't. It doesn't really matter, Does it really matter?
It's, even if it's something like loading the dishwasher, and it's like the other person gets to load the dishwasher however they want, and you just kind of bossing them around about it over and over isn't going to work. And It's not very interesting either. So, yeah, I think that's a really neat way to think about things. And I think choice is the theme throughout everything you're talking about, how important it is to be choiceful, thinking about your own choices and recognizing what choices work for you and what choices don't work for you.
Yeah, and also being honoring of yourself, which brings you to the 5 elements of intimacy, which I spoke about earlier, but also honoring of the other person. Because if you're like, and can I just say, both of us have mentioned these things that are the small things, but man, it's the small things that create a great relationship. Like that dishwasher story, you can destroy a relationship on a dishwasher argument, or you can create a great one, or the surfing story, something like that. It's these smaller things that make it great or destroy it. So yeah, it's like, and that honoring. So honoring of yourself. Like, so as an example, I love laundry. I don't know why. We don't need to go down that road, but I love doing laundry. Okay, yeah, I love it. But I don't like folding and I don't like ironing. But I love doing the laundry, right? So I would do the laundry like, all the time. Clothes are always clean. But I got an ironing lady in, because that's going to create more ease than one of us having to go and iron. I'd rather go work. I'd rather go do something and earn that money and have an ironing lady. So I think that's when you start to honor yourself, and you're honoring, like, you're not expecting your partner, because I don't like ironing, then he has to go iron. No, let's just get an ironing lady, Like you broaden, and it's the little things.
So one of the things you talk about is that brutal honesty is the missing ingredient in modern relationships, which I agree. But I'd like you to teach my audience something about why that's important.
Well, I would say brutal honesty starts with you.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Yeah. It's more so you, and there's so many aspects of this. So the first thing is, and everything we've been talking about today, is that brutal honesty with yourself. Like, is this actually working, right? Am I enjoying this? Is there something I need to change? Like, don't pretend to yourself. I mean, we're so good at lying to ourselves. Here's something I'd like to ask. Learn to lie to others when you need to, but don't lie to yourself. Stop lying to yourself, okay? So when you look at that, and then you can look at your partner, and the brutal honesty might be, can they hear this? Can they have this? Because there is if you're trying to tell someone something and they can't hear it, that's being unkind. So, but you're brutally honest to you, right? It's like, what can they hear? What can they have? Okay, let's do that. You don't need to share everything. It could be just for you, just for fun. Don't tell anyone, right? Especially women. I don't know why we have this gene in us that we just go, we want to share everything with everybody, you know. And men tend to be a little bit more like, they process in a different way. And I am generalizing, and there's definitely women who function more like men, and men who function more like women. And I get that, okay? I get that. But it's important to have a look at what that person in front of you, how do they function, right? And just because you have something that you're being brutally honest with yourself, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to share it. You can, but the brutally honest part is also recognizing what they can hear and what they can receive as well.
Was there anything else about creationship that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about? Because I like that idea a lot. I think a lot about being more creative, even in my gardening, you know, messing around with different things. I just think it's part of creativity as well. So what would you like to tell us?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I like that you mentioned your garden. You know, I have a big food forest in my backyard. I have like 24 fruit trees and 12 banana trees and all these different stuff going on. And I love it. It's absolute chaos. Okay, so again, if you look up the dictionary of relationship, especially before 1937, they changed a lot around that time. Relationship literally means the distance between two things. So you're going, oh, I'm in relationship, and then you're creating, this is all the things, the ways that we are distant, rather than if you choose to have a creationship, what I say is a creationship is when you are with someone, and it is your lover, your partner, your friend, your colleague, like all of that. You are creating at least 20 times more together than what you would alone. For me, a creationship is, does this person bring me joy? Do they contribute to me? Do I bring them joy? Do I contribute to them? So that the relationships aren't this like one-way street, you know, and someone's pulling over here. It's like, no, let's create more because you're in my life.
Yeah, I agree. So one of the things I appreciated you talked about in your book was that trust isn't always about the other person. And would you talk about why it's important to trust yourself? We've talked about wanting, you know, knowing your wants and knowing your needs and what we're doing all that. But why is it important to trust yourself, and what does that mean?
I think the key piece of this is not looking for somebody else to trust you instead of you trusting you. Which is, like I mentioned, those 5 elements of intimacy. Most people look for that in somebody else, but what if you trusted you first? And I mean, even I had this conversation yesterday. You know, I got this place in Costa Rica called El Lugar, and it's so stunning. It's absolutely beautiful, and we've built a lot of it. It can house like 125 people, and there's more to go. And I looked yesterday at the amount of money I was willing to create in order to keep building, and I realized I had like this cap on it. And I went, oh, we need more money. So and it was something like that was unfathomable in my world. And I went, oh, what would I have to acknowledge if I chose to create this? I'd have to, and it was so interesting, Rhoda. I went, I'd have to trust me more. I'd have to trust my capacities. I'd have to be grateful for what I'm capable of and choose that and even more. Not work out the how, not work out a solution, like none of that. It's like, no, what if I trusted me more? What if I knew that I was way more capable than what I'm currently choosing? Because my life is great and I've chosen a lot, and it's a very different lifestyle I lead. And is it as great as what I could be choosing? I could choose more. But it's a level of trusting me. It's like somebody else can tell me, oh, Simone, you're great at this, da-da-da-da, whatever. It's like, awesome, thank you so much. I welcome the acknowledgement and the gratitude, and yet if I don't have trust for me, it's really got nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything about the 5 elements of real intimacy that we can practice daily that we haven't covered?
I would just add, like, you know, when I said I put them on Post-it notes and put them on my mirror, like if you drive around a lot, put them on your steering wheel or, you know, a little notice on your phone. But what I started to play with was the 5 elements of intimacy, and I'll say them again: gratitude, trust, allowance, vulnerability, and honor. Have I chosen that with me today? Have I chosen that with my body today? Like, most people don't go to gratitude, they don't go to this honoring or trust of their body, they go to judgment, litany of judgment, you know. Well, what if you could stop that? Because judgment never creates anything greater, ever. But now look at that, the 5 elements of intimacy with your business, with your financial reality. Like, do you have a trust of your business, of your finances, an honoring, a gratitude, or is that again something you're choosing to judge? The 5 elements of intimacy, if you use those as a tool, will get you out of judgment and the limitations into a different possibility.
I think that's true. My final question, is there anything we haven't covered that you want to share?
I think the last thing I'd like to say is you get to choose. You get to choose everything. I was reading a quote yesterday from Bruce Lee, and someone said, "How do you find peace?" And he said, "You don't find it, you choose it." And I think that's with everything, right? It's like how your life is right now is there because you chose it. Now, what would you like to choose?
There's a really good biography about Bruce Lee as the first really Asian to crack the American Hollywood movie thing. And it's a really interesting biography. He was quite a man. He really was.
Oh, yeah. Incredible.
Yeah. So remind us all the title of your book and website and anything else you want people to be aware of.
Well, this book is called Relationship. Are You Sure You Want One? And my name, there's no other Simone Millises in the world. I sometimes think I had a great name because I've never found one. So you Google my name, Simone, SIMONE MILASAS. That's my website, that's my Instagram, that's my Facebook, that's everything. So it's very easy. And also Access Consciousness is where all these tools came from. So if you want to check out Access Consciousness as well. It's like I've worked with Access for over 25 years, I think. So, yeah.
All right. That's it for today's conversation. If you're walking away with more questions than answers, honestly, that's kind of the point. Sit with it, notice it, and don't rush to solve everything at once. Please tell others how much you enjoy the podcast, send a link to a friend, or write a review. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't. If you have enjoyed the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes and help get the word out. To learn more or connect with Rhoda, visit therapyideas.net.